In this lesson, you'll learn about using property nodes and control references to programmatically control front panel objects. VI Server provides programmatic access to LabVIEW and LabVIEW applications. Although VI Server performs many functions, this section concentrates on how to use the VI Server to control front panel objects. VI Server has an object-oriented architecture that is platform-independent. Each object that is part of VI Server is part of a class. The class that the object is part of determines what an object can do, what operations or methods it can perform, and what properties it has. Objects can be things like a stop button, a push button, a numeric control, or an array. Front panel objects inherit their properties from the control class. This class has subclasses where the objects are defined by their data type. For example, a stop button is an object of the Boolean subclass of the control class. Now that you have the basics of the VI Server class hierarchy, let's talk about how we can use VI Server to modify a front panel object. Properties are single-valued attributes of the object, such as its color, position, size, visibility, label text, and label font. Properties can be read or write, read-only, or write-only. Let's take another look at the class hierarchy that we saw a few moments ago. The stop button inherits the properties associated with the Boolean class, which in turn inherits properties from the control class. This is useful because you can rely on the stop button as having the visible property from the control class. Think of class hierarchy as a template for defining states and behaviors that are common to objects. A property node reads and/or writes an object's properties, allowing you to programmatically change them. For example, using a property node, you can enable wrapping for a string control and disable or enable front panel controls. Let's explore how we can create a property node to disable a numeric. You can create a property node from an object by right-clicking it, selecting Create Property Node, and selecting a property from the shortcut menu. Right-click it and change it to Write, and create a control. This creates a property node on the block diagram that is implicitly linked to the front panel object. Let's set this control to Disable and run the VI. Note that the numeric indicator is grayed out. Let's enable it and explore how to modify a front panel control or indicator with an explicitly linked property node. First, create a control reference by right-clicking a control or indicator and selecting Create Reference. Now let's open the Quick Drop dialog box to place a property node on the block diagram. And wire our control reference. The property node adapts to the class of the control reference input. Now we can select the object properties that we want to read or write with this property node and create controls and indicators. Let's run the VI. Note that the numeric indicator is now grayed out and the visible LED is on. If you want to use a sub-VI to modify the object properties, you can create a sub-VI that includes the property node, but does not include the control reference. This can be useful if you want to modify the properties for a variety of front panel objects at the same time, such as when you're initializing a VI. Property nodes are expandable and can have multiple properties. property nodes execute from top to bottom. The first time this node executes, the old value for the tip strip is read and passed to the indicator. The new value is written, but not read because property nodes execute from top to bottom, and the write terminal executes after the read terminal. If you run this VI again, the tip strip, this is a numeric control, displays. In this example, we are modifying and reading properties for the numeric control. The first terminal of the property node is write to label text, which changes the text of the label on the numeric control. This causes an error because this property cannot be changed when the VI is running. Therefore, the disabled terminal will not execute. The tip strip is an empty string. The visible Boolean is false, and no values are written to the tip strip or the value properties of the numeric control. Use invoke nodes to call methods on objects, such as export image for a waveform chart. An invoke node can only call one method for an object. Most methods have parameters. If the background of a parameter is grayed out, then that method parameter is optional. Use context help to get information on methods. As with property nodes, there are two types of invoke nodes, implicitly linked and explicitly linked. This VI plots a random number on a waveform chart every 100 milliseconds. I'll create an implicitly linked invoke node that will export the waveform to an image on my local drive. First, I create the invoke node by right-clicking the waveform chart and creating the invoke node to export the image. On this invoke node, the file type and target inputs are required, while the path, hide grid, and always overwrite inputs are optional. Next, I'll create the constants for the invoke node. I'll right-click the file type input and create the constant. I want this image to be a bitmap. I'll also create a constant for the target. Finally, I'll create a constant for the path and drag it inside the while loop. I'm now ready to run the VI. The waveform chart is presenting data, and when I click the stop button, an image of the waveform chart will be saved in my temporary directory. I'm expecting to see a .bmp image file in the c:/temp folder, and when I go to see the file, it's there. If I run the VI again, let the waveform chart present new data, and press stop, I'll see a message asking if I want to replace the file. I can avoid this message by adding a true constant to the always overwrite input on the invoke node. I'll click Cancel and add this constant. And now when I run the file, I no longer get the message asking me if I'd like to overwrite it, and the new waveform chart bitmap is saved to the temporary directory. Be sure to use the context help when using invoke nodes to understand the required and optional inputs. You can use a VI server reference to associate an invoke node with the current VI. If the invoke node reference input is unwired and the class is set to VI, then by default the method will operate on the current VI. Here's a summary of what you've learned in this lesson.